Hi, everyone. I think we'll get started. Christy, if you want to start the recording, I guess that'll make it official.
All set.
All right. Thanks, Christy. I appreciate it. Good afternoon, everybody. As just a heads up, we are recording this, so be aware. Welcome to our Performance Office Student Assessment Office Hours. My name is Abe Christ from the Performance Office. Welcome. Office hours has been used for many years. This is a tradition we've been doing as a tool for updating districts on late breaking information in the assessment realm, as well as to allow for questions from you all from the field. We will most definitely not use the 1 hour since our update is usually brief, as we want to leave time for you all. Please use the chat or the raise hand feature to ask any questions during the meeting. We'll try to get those answered as they come in. This year we did send an invite to all DAs and Tide, so it did appear on your calendar. If you want to attend, it's there for you to drop in. And finally, a PDF of this presentation has been put in the chat. First off, before we start rolling on all our smarter tests, our NGSS, CTOS, and CTAA news, we wanted to thank you sincerely from the bottom of our heart. Because we know that many of you wear multiple hats, the efforts that you've made testing LAS students as well as the SAT students that have gone through in the last month or two. Props to all you and the districts, all your students who have sort of stuck through it this year. We know it's been another tricky year, and we really appreciate that. And also props to our awesome assessment team and in our office. It couldn't go on without them. So thank you for those efforts. First off, on the call, we have just want to introduce my colleagues on the call. Christy Alberino is on the call. Christy works on Smarter Balanced. Interims are our appeals. Michelle Rosado, I believe, is on the call. She works on Connecticut SAT as well as many other projects. And then Miriam Flores, who answers the phone in the office as well as many other projects. You'll probably talk to Miriam if you call into our office. And note Christy's number and email if you do have appeals, because Christy is managing all our appeals once again this year. Also dropping in the office today is Jeff Gregg. He should be there somewhere. I believe Jeff is there. And then Deirdre Ducharme. Jeff works on our science, and Deirdre Ducharme works on our special populations. I also want to mention a special guest today, Janet Stuck. Janet is retiring. Today is her last day. So unfortunately we had to make this slide without Janet, but I can't go on without mentioning her. Janet Stuck, congratulations, Janet. Janet's had an amazing 15 years here at the department, and we wish you luck, Janet. So if you're emailing Janet after today, you might get an out of office, a permanent out of office. Thank you, Janet, for all your work. So let's start off by our contact information. We listed everybody's contact information there prior. Real simple, CT student assessment at ct.gov, our 860-713-6860 number. If you need to contact us, best way to do it, in addition to the previous emails and numbers, that's how you would do it. Also on the call today, we want to invite our special guests from Cambium, who are here: Jen Cho, Marie Musumeci, Kim David, and I'm not sure if Erica Gray is here today, but they're on the call as well. Here's their contact information too. Okay, so why do we do office hours, and when do we do it? We do them every Thursday from now until June 3rd. As I mentioned earlier, we sent out a Teams invite on March 28th to all DAs, so it should be on your calendars. If you can't make it, feel free to forward it to any of your colleagues. And this is optional. It's totally optional. Every week is different. Sometimes we usually like to promote any late breaking news, any popular news, any questions that we've been getting a lot of. So it's also intended to answer questions that come in from you. So you can come in and ask questions. You can also come in and just tell us how you're doing. We love to hear that and check in with you. We miss you guys. Also, so testing numbers as of this morning, Some districts are off and running. As you can see, Smarter Balance tests are already about 3,200 completed statewide. NGSS leads at the moment, and then we have some of our alternate students have also completed the tests. NGSS, we did start out with grade 11 in the beginning of February, so about 1,000 kids started before this week. So about 3,000 testers have come in this week as well, so about 4,000. So districts have started testing. So far, so good. Things have been terrific this week so far. Okay, so some important reminders. Some of this is new news. Some of this is old news. We just want to re-emphasize. We will touch on like global reminders, and then I'm going to hand the baton off to my colleagues, Janet and Deirdre. Going to talk a little bit about special pops, and also sprinkled in between, Jen Cho from CAI is going to touch on a Chrome update on one of the slides. Oops. So first off, this is very similar to what we said during our DA presentation, but we want to mention it again. The health and safety is the #1 priority for your communities, your students, and your staff. If we say anything counter to that, don't listen. Do not listen to us, because that is the most important thing. We recognize that things are still tricky out there in the schools with health and safety. So we want to emphasize that that is the most important thing. We also are committed to administering our state academic assessments in 21-22. We haven't changed that stance. We've been continuing that important message, the importance of our summative assessment. And finally, there is no remote testing. The expectation is universal participation that is in person. We don't have the remote testing option this year. All the materials, continuing on here, all the materials are posted to our Connecticut Comprehensive Assessment Program portal if you need to access them. And if I didn't already mention this, the PDF is posted in the chat, and it has the link to this link here. All TAMs and TCMs were delivered in late January. If you're thinking, oh my goodness, I didn't receive them, you can either contact that Cambium Help Desk. You can contact us here at CSDE. We can help you get some more. We can also direct you to the comprehensive portal to get some more. But some districts were surprised that they were sent out, because I've talked to some that said we never got them for one reason or another, not because they were not shipped, but they were, put in a closet and sort of forgotten. So be mindful that that stuff has been sent out. Next thing is a reminder about field testing. Connecticut is participating in field testing for Smarter Balanced and NGSS this year. This is not a change for NGSS. We have been for a number of years doing this for NGSS. However, this year we will be field testing on the CAT for Smarter in ELA and math. There will be no field testing for the performance task in math. For many years, and for a variety of reasons, we have not had the opportunity, Connecticut students have not had the opportunity to vote on the field testing items, and now we do have that opportunity. There will be approximately 1 to 2 math items given per student and 3 to 6 ELA items in order to help build the pool. What you might be wondering, what is this going to result in? A few more minutes of testing time. But ultimately it will be minimal in both tests. And keep in mind that the tests are technically untimed, so this should not cause a problems in terms of students accessing all the live items. And also, as a reminder, this is a common practice. Field testing is a common practice that was done for many years for CMT, and it is currently done now on our science assessment. We took a break for a few years, but field testing is back. And finally, changes to student demographics must be updated in PSIS Reg. Again, PSIS Reg is truth. The IDEA and 504 indicator must be set in PSIS for students to access accommodations during testing. Okay, and this is brand new information. So if you're on your if you're multitasking and you've heard all these things prior, you might want to tune in for 30 seconds here. We will be releasing results as we have in the past. We're striving for mid-June. We recognize the need to get these results out there. The idea that this impacts many things down the road and during the summer. However, we will be providing results of tests taken earlier in the window on a rolling release during the test window on CRS. The date and the timing has not been set because we are going to be running a lot of quality controls prior to that release. But again, we will be opening the window on a rolling release for student results for students that have taken the test early in the window. And this will be on the CRS CAI system. This is something that other states have done. We've been cautiously moving in that direction, and now we've sort of seen the light in terms of seeing how valuable this is. So we will be doing it this year. So watch out for more information about this as the testing window rolls on. Okay, I'm going to turn this slide over to my colleague Jen Cho from CAI. Jen, do you want to knock
Sure.
this one out of the park?
Yeah, and this is just to say we are supporting up to version 99 at the moment. I know recently Google had sent out kind of alert over some security issues with older versions of Chrome. I believe it was 96, 97, 98. So if your devices are on those versions, you can definitely roll up to 99, and that should have no issues with testing, as well as should address the security issue that Google had sent out to everyone. So like we said before, always lock down your version. So if you're on 99, please lock it down before testing. But we just wanted to let you know that starting this week, we are supporting version 99.
Thanks, Jen. I appreciate it. We mentioned this because we've had a lot of communication in regards to this on our SAT testing, which uses also a Cambium product. So this is why we wanted to make sure that this communication is put forth. So if you're not the tech person in your district, you might want to check in with the tech person and just remind them what Jen had said, so this doesn't come up in your district. Okay, thanks again, Jen. I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues work on our special POPs for an update on the designated supports and accommodations. So I see Deirdre jumping in. I wasn't sure if Deirdre or Janet were taking the slides.
Great, thanks, Dave. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for taking time out this afternoon to attend office hours. I'm going to take a couple of moments just to showcase some of the overarching questions that we're receiving this time of year, the most common questions related to designated supports and accommodations in the alternate assessment. But if you're looking for more detailed information on topics related to special populations, I encourage you to visit the CSD Student Assessment webpage. You can access the training link, in which we've posted a number of our district-wide trainings, as well as office hours, both in February and March. So if you're interested in taking a deeper dive related to accommodations and accessibility issues, we do have recorded presentations available on our webpage. I'd like to highlight two important dates to keep in mind regarding the process for accommodations and special documented accommodations. So one of the questions we often get is, when is the deadline to submit designated supports and accommodations in TIDE? And the answer is that TIDE remains open until the end of the year. The best practice is to make sure that you have a mechanism in place locally for setting designated supports and accommodations prior to the start of your testing window, and absolutely prior to your students' first test experience. We want to make sure that all students have their appropriate designated supports and accommodations in place before the student ever starts participating in the statewide assessment program. Secondly, we did have a deadline of March 1st for special documented accommodations. And these are the non-standard accommodations that some students need in order to access our statewide assessments. These include things like the provision of a human reader for the full assessment, or the provision of a scribe for students who need additional support with written communication, or access due to a physical disability. But even though we have this March 1st deadline, we are still accepting petitions. So if you have a recent 504 or PPT meeting and there are changes to your student's plan, if your student needs non-standard accommodations, please reach out to me and I will work with you as DA to make sure that you have the petition available, and you can work with your staff to make sure that you that you can complete the information and submit that to us. We are, if you're waiting for an approval letter based on a petition you've already sent, please hang in there. Janet and I are, we are busily attacking these, or busily processing these petitions as we speak. So our takeaway is, please hold off on testing these students until you receive an approval letter from us. And if you do have any specific questions about the status of the petition, please give a call and I can give you greater details. And then finally, we do have some processes in place for students that are eligible for medical exemptions. If you're in need of learning more about what qualifies a student for medical exemptions, please refer to Appendix B of our assessment guideline document. We have a process in place for students who are medically ill and not participating in school. These are students that are not receiving hospitalized or homebound instruction, and therefore, as a result, will not be in school or able to participate in any kind of statewide assessments. We have an exemption process in place. If you think you have a student that qualifies, please contact me. We do have 2 critical deadlines specific to the assessments and the variation in assessment window. So for students taking the SAT school day, we have a medical exemption deadline of May 6th. And then for the remaining students taking science and Smarter Balance and the alternate, the petition is, or the application is due on June 10th. If you have questions, please let me know. Just a gentle reminder to work with your staff to make sure that everything's in place for test day. And this means taking some time to think about the test environment and specific test settings that are optimal for all students, but then especially for those that may have special considerations documented in their IEP or 504 plan. So keep in mind that some students may be qualified to participate in small group testing. Pay attention to the fact that they have enough ample space to work on their device, that they have their scrap paper and a working writing utensil for taking notes. We want our students to have an opportunity to participate in practice testing. So if your students are having, especially our 3rd graders who've never taken a Smarter Balance assessment before, and if they haven't participated in the optional interim assessments, make sure that your teachers have an opportunity to show students how to use the online test platform via the practice test, how to try out the different universal tools, such as marking items for review, highlighting, using the digital notepad, etc. And then even more critical for your students that use embedded accommodations and designated support, some of those have to be activated by the student. So it's important that kids know how to access these various functions so that the day of testing, they have the confidence and ease to be able to manage and negotiate the assessment without any unnecessary worries. And if you have students that require the provision of large print paper test booklets or Braille paper kits, make sure that as a district administrator that you order these materials in Tide. The turnaround for receiving these materials is relatively brief, but we want to make sure that you have the test materials available to meet your test schedule. We also have specific protocol for how you submit those paper test materials after the student has participated in testing, and directions are included within your shipment of materials. As far as the non-embedded supports, I'm just going to take a moment to review some of the materials that are available. Often the materials that we have listed here, such as the provision of simplified test directions, periodic table, translated test directions, these are things that are accessible on both the portal and the CSDE webpage under student assessment. We want to make sure that you identify the students in your schools that need these materials and that you take time in advance of testing to access them, to download and print and make them available for distribution. The simplified test directions are available for math and ELA only. We don't offer this for science, but the simplification essentially applies to the script that's published in the test administration manual. So your teachers are welcome to download the guidelines for simplified test directions. It will require a little bit of planning on behalf of the teacher based on the unique needs of the students to determine the best way for the directions to be simplified. We offer a bilingual dictionary, a list of approved bilingual dictionaries on our webpage and portal as well for students who need language supports when taking the NGSS assessment. And then for the translated test directions, this applies to Smarter Balanced Math and ELA. We offer, I believe, up to 26 languages translated. These are like a word-to-word translation. You have the English version as well as the translation for the student's native language. And what it will do is it identifies the various functions that students will experience the minute they log on to the secure browser until they submit their test. So the title, translated directions, is a little misleading, but really this is a substantial document that students can use with the translations related to the secure browser and the various symbols and functionality that students see on their test screen. Next slide. We also offer non-embedded accommodations available to students that qualify. So some of our students with IEPs and 504s may have math goals and objectives and accommodations to help support their math dyscalculia or other types of learning disabilities. So Smarter Balanced has a specific multiplication table that we would expect any student approved for this accommodation to use. So you're not using the multiplication table that you might have in your classroom, but you're going to access the Smarter Balanced multiplication table that we have posted to the portal. It's available to students in grades 3 through 8 that qualify. Smarter Balanced also has a 100 numbers table available. Again, for students that qualify, make sure that you download these resources in advance to testing. If you have students that use assistive technology, this could include JAWS or NVDA, or students that use screen readers, what have you. We do have a supporting assistive technology manual that provides additional guidance as far as how the software and how the assistive technology will work in conjunction with a secure test delivery interface. So as a reminder for students using assistive technology, make sure that you turn on the permissive mode in TIDE. And if you need specific supports regarding the software, third-party software, things like that, there's a lot of information available in the assistive technology manual. And if there are questions, always feel free to contact our office. We get lots of questions on the reader supports for Smarter Balanced in science and how the reader supports apply to students with disabilities versus English learners and all students, in fact, that might in fact be using text-to-speech in the classroom, just given the technological advancements over the years. So to clarify, we do offer text-to-speech as a reader support, as a designated support for any student that may need the access. And so the reader support is limited to text-to-speech of test items. So this includes math items and the stimuli associated with the math assessment, science items, and then the English language arts items. So reading, writing, research, etc. For students that need a higher level support, so students who have print disabilities or a visual disability, we do offer text-to-speech of the reading passages as an accommodation. There are some resources we've included on this slide that will walk you through the variety of supports available based on need and how those supports apply to each of our assessments, so across math, reading, or English language arts and science. Some of these do require some special considerations. So the minute we think about offering non-standard accommodations by having a teacher read to the student, we want to make sure that our teachers are familiar with how to serve as a reader of items or of passages. So we do have some resources available on our webpage that actually, if you when you access the decision guidelines, for instance, or the reader options table, on that main page of the portal, there's some additional resources that you can point your teachers into the direction of getting some more information on like how to serve in that capacity. We would expect for students who have a reader in a one-to-one setting that they are testing individually and not in a small group, just because our students have such individual needs when it comes to accessing the text. As far as our speech to text, if that's fine, Abe, you can go on to speech to text. Speech to text is not a new accommodation, but it does support students with that require extra support for written communication. So this is a feature that's built into our test delivery interface. It does need, it's an accommodation. So students with an IEP or 504 are eligible for this. It supports students with their responses to the open-ended items. On math performance tasks, there are still a handful of open-ended items that kids respond to in reading and writing. So I just want to point out that we want to make sure that if students qualify for this accommodation, that not only is it activated in TIDE, but that kids have an opportunity to try the speech to text out in advance of testing. And just as a pointer, kids will have an opportunity to verify that their microphone is working when they initially log onto the secure browser, so they can test out the functionality. But then secondly, students need to look for the microphone icon anytime they're accessing an open-ended response. When they activate that, when they click on that microphone icon, the system will then prompt them to dictate their response. And students can go back and modify their answer as many times as necessary, but that's an added reminder to your students to make sure that they take some time to double check their dictated response to make sure that their message was correctly transcribed by the system. Next slide. The data entry interface is, I just want to mention this particular system available on the portal because it does serve many functions. If you have students that are taking a large print test booklet or using the Braille kit, after testing, the test examiner has the added responsibility of transcribing the student responses from the test booklets into the data entry interface. This is how we're able to score and report your student results into our centralized reporting system. It is a critical step. So even though you're going to submit all of your secure test materials to Measurement Incorporated per the instructions you receive in your paper test kits, you want to make sure that your proctor does take time before June 3rd to make sure that the student responses are transcribed into the data entry interface. Your teachers will also use the data entry interface if they have a student that's eligible for an alternate assessment. We have our teachers submit the Connecticut alternate assessment eligibility form into the DEI. This is really the first step in registering a student for the alternate assessments. And then finally, teachers, TEAs will use the DEI after completing the alternate science assessment. So for students who are in grades 5, 8, and 11 and qualify for the alternate assessments, the student score worksheets that are completed in hard copy by the teacher will be transcribed into the data entry interface. And similar to our other assessments, this is how we're able to score and report your student results on the alternate science. And then finally, we're still getting a lot of questions about the alternate assessments. And why can't my teacher access the DEI, or we think our student, we think the eligibility form was submitted for our student, but the alt flag wasn't activated. So I'm just gonna take a moment to remind you of some critical steps, given the fact that the deadline for submitting the eligibility forms has now passed. But at the same time, we don't deny students if they're eligible. So you certainly can have your teacher submit the eligibility forms for students that qualify. If you're submitting a late eligibility form, the kind of the rule of thumb is make sure that the person who's submitting the form has a TEA user role and that that individual has completed the required training. Now, most of your staff has already done that, but we know that we have new staff that start in our school programs on a rolling basis. So you might have a circumstance where there's a new teacher who's coming on board. So make sure your teacher has the proper tied status, proper tied role, and has completed training that will then allow that teacher access to the data entry interface and other supporting systems related to the alternate assessment. Secondly, if the teacher submits the form, the eligibility form through the DEI, make sure that you or designated staff, it could be the teacher, but someone has to contact the Connecticut Help Desk to make sure that the alt flag indicator is activated. So we've included their contact information, and I've included a snippet as to what you should look for. So if you think you have a student who has the form submitted, but you're not sure about the alt flag, on the Students Tied dashboard, what you want to see is the yes toggle in blue next to the alternate assessment indicator. That's a great sign. That means your student is ready to access the alternate assessments. If that blue is not highlighted, then that's when you know you either need to check in with your teacher to see whether the form was submitted, or you can contact the help desk and ask them to activate the flag. And a final reminder for your teachers administering the alternate assessments, we have a variety of required and some optional training, actually not training, but assessment materials available on the TIDE system. So as a district administrator, you have access to this. Our TEAs also have access to the secure test materials. These include the required directions for test administration. These are grade and subject specific, so the teachers should be downloading at a minimum the math and the ELA DTA for their student. We also have posted the PDFs of our alternate assessments in paper copy if you have students that may benefit from taking the test in a paper format. This does require the teacher to transcribe the student responses into the secure browser. But I just wanted to bring to your attention that these materials are available. They are secure, so make sure that when these materials are not in use, that they're kept in a secure location. I think, oops, one more, science. So as a reminder, if you require access to the science materials for the alternate science, we do have a link on the portal in which you can download the performance tasks, the resource cards, and the student score worksheets. If you should have these paper materials already in district, but if you are in need of the student score worksheets, for instance, you can download and print them from our portal. We have a corresponding manual as well, so make sure that your teachers administering the alternate science have downloaded the CTAS test administration manual. And all the student score worksheets must be submitted through the DEI no later than June 3rd. Now I think that's about it. So I'm going to pause and I'm going to turn it back to Abe.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate the update. We've had a couple questions come in on the chat, but we can certainly, if someone wants to voice their question, we'd be happy to wait for a moment here. If you want to, we can open your mic and you can ask it, or you can also drop it in the chat. We will wait a moment here.
Abe, I think that I need to unmute the attendees, so they would have to raise their hand first so I could unmute them.
Okay, thanks for the reminder, Christy. I see Matt dropped the chat in. If you have a question, Matt, you can certainly just type it in, or if that doesn't work, again, you can certainly email us. We'd be happy to help you. Sorry about that.
Matt can unmute and use his microphone now.
Okay, well, we'll continue to wait here. I do want to reemphasize that we will be doing this weekly. Again, the agenda is can take many directions depending on what the emphasis is at the time for testing. So some weeks we'll talk a little bit more about special pops. Some weeks we might be talking a little bit more about, like for instance, towards the end of the window, about participation and tracking your students. And you are welcome to come and hear our updates, as well as drop into, here if you have any questions or you want to make any points that's what's going on in your district. We'd love to hear from you. I think Matt just let us know that it looks like he might have to drop off. So Matt, I see your question here. I think I understand the spirit of this. There is no real requirement to be trained in TIDE necessarily. That it's up to the DA to assign roles in TIDE. In the TIDE users manual, there's a list of all the roles. I think, and I'm going to sort of go on a limb here. This might also, so it can be anybody in terms of administering the assessments. Thus, they would need a TIDE role if they wanted to set up a test session. You just have to be properly trained and supervised by a certified staff member. So again, if you mentioned a para here, that's totally fine as long as that para is trained in test security for the day, as well as supervised by a certified staff member. Brand new student service.
The area that does need training is for the alternate assessment. That is a required training.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for the reminder on that, Janet. And Matt, okay, there's another chat here from Monica. For any of those those of you that are new, we do like custom sessions essentially with you if you need to. So say for instance, you're a private approved special ed facility and you have students who maybe are only in one particular grade or take the alternate assessment, we'd be happy to do a custom training with you. So if you are new, just give us one of us an email and we'll set something up, a Teams meeting just like this, and we find it easier to talk through this as opposed to sending you emails and all kinds of trainings and stuff like that. So just email us. I think Monica, the guidelines were dropped in by Deirdre. Deirdre, thanks. You can do it. You'll be fine. We're always here for you. All my colleagues on the call. This is the time of year to support you all in your efforts to get testing done. So if you need anything, we're here for you. Don't worry, you got this. There's some veterans on the line here. I can see them. We can see all the attendees, and I know it can be done. They've done it for many years with flying colors, so. Okay, any of my colleagues want to make any last minute announcements or updates? Janet, I tell you what, I'll let you close today since this is your last office hours. But
well, I think, like Abe said, we have an excellent support team here. Just a phone call away or email. And we've created a lot of resources that you may not be aware of to help you through this. And for those of you that have been doing this for a while with me, I really appreciate your efforts through the years. It's been wonderful, and you all make such a difference in the lives of these kids. I'm so proud of you. Thank you. And hope to keep in touch.
Thanks, Jan.
Bye.
I can't top that. So thanks for everyone for attending. Stay safe and have a great afternoon.
Bye, everyone.